The landscapes of our lives are for learning, where experience is our teacher. When we gather together to share our resources, we are destined to love and thrive.
Hey, good morning, Maureen.
Good morning, Pierre.
It rained here the other day, which is an amazing thing. Like, people get so excited about rain. It's crazy. For 3 days, opened the door the other evening at night so I could hear the raindrops. It was really good. It's really good. I got a text from you. And let me just, I got a text from you. Yeah. I got like texts from you.
You get lots of texts from me all the time. When I have a thought, I'm like, I'm just going to send this to him really quick.
I do. Okay. Well, this one that came through, and I haven't listened to it, is AlanWatts. So,
we want to talk about AlanWatts.
Yeah, I thought I'd just tee it up for you, and
that podcast. I started listening to the AlanWatts podcast because it's on the same, I think it's sponsored by the same network as the Ram Dass Foundation or whatever. And I was listening to like talks from Ram Dass, and I was just noticing, listening to a bunch of both of their podcasts, that the one concept that I think is really interesting that I like to remind myself of to make my life better is that there's this personality in the world being, and then there's like this other kind of consciousness and being in the flow. And Alan Watts is a guy, he was an Episcopalian priest, and he's known for bringing Buddhism to the West, teaching about Zen Buddhism and the Tao Te Ching, and he's like super smart. So I was listening to this podcast yesterday, and I actually sent it to my kids too. I didn't just send it to you.
Okay.
Because I think to know that your personality in this world, isn't all of who you are. And I think we run around spending so much time, as Ram Dass would say, trying to be somebody.
Yeah.
That we think that that's all life is, and we're just so much more than that. And we've said this before.
The title that you sent me grabbed my attention. As I said, I haven't listened to it yet. It's called "Being in the Way," and I guess there's a double entendre there too. What do you mean, your personality in this world?
Well, just, trying to think, well, it's ego-centered, really. It's really about the ego and who you think you are. And that ego is a figment of it's your imagination. It's your self-perception of who you think you are, your perceptions of how other people see and judge you and know you to be. And we spend a lot of time, conditioning children to become this quote unquote somebody in the world, play all those roles and become this. What are you going to do when you grow up? And that's sort of like the ego personality part, and the spirit and the energetic being and consciousness that we are kind of gets lost.
Not only does it get lost, it's never found. I mean, wouldn't it be great if we had an educational system, either through, our upbringing, parents, religion, culture, or formally in school, where we were taught, that there's a world of life and identity beyond these roles that we play to work our way through society. I was a little bit fortunate, in that my dad was kind of, when I was young, I guess I was about 10. He started taking Tai Chi, which actually he started taking Aikido, and Chi, and I guess that they call it Ki. And then into Tai Chi, which he maintained his whole life. And, I think he probably always had extraordinary powers of meditation and concentration, but in everyday practice in Tai Chi, we, later in life, we just called him the Zen master because,
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, well, that's that connection to the chi, the G, that, energetic being. And yeah, I think in culture, well, in our American culture, and even the subcultures that you and I, respectively belong to, church and state are separate. Religion is, the Eastern culture is a little bit different, and I don't even know what I'm saying, but basically, like, I know what you're saying. Like, we don't grow up with the rituals and the language and the conversation around, well, yoga and union and
Yeah.
this kind of.
We were talking before about how play and bodily activity is a natural therapeutic activity. What did you call it?
Neurosensory
exercises. And, a lot of it is based in play. So on the one hand, we did have something which is a connection to this unity in body and mind. But on the other hand, to my point, that, it's not that we've lost, it's not that we lose it, it's that we really never found it. We're not taught to know that this is super, super important. And gosh, here we are after decades and decades of life, if you put them all together. And, we're exploring this material, but as it's so easily taught. I mean, it's just opening your mind. You could teach this to 12-year-olds and they would get it for the rest of their life.
Right. Well, back to AlanWatts, I think he does. Why I like him so much is that he's such a good communicator and he's such a good teacher. And Ram Dass too is very practical and straightforward and clear in how he talks about these things. You and I kind of stumble around and trying to, fumble through talking about these kind of more consciousness, ethereal things, but their life's work was that, but they're very good communicators. And so, I know yesterday when I was listening to that podcast, I was driving up to Terry's studio to do yoga, and he talked about like the Atman, which reminded me of training, capital
Right.
A. And, it's
Right.
like, we already have it. And he was talking about how everybody's looking out there into the world of culture and personality in the ego-centered world to find themselves and find their identity. And it's like the Atman's within, like the God is within. We were never separate. And the intellect has separated us from that. And we talked about that with Sadhguru was talking about the same thing with Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Atman being your greater self and integrated into the universe and everything. Well, I think that's kind of good for AlanWatts and a nice way to start the morning, and just kind of leave it at that. We'll put some show links in and people can find out who he is. I remember him as a poet, and doing these readings in the village, and they were pretty quirky. But I didn't realize, so I thought he was a younger man. I didn't realize he was born like in 1913 or something like that.
He died in the 70s or 80s?
He died in the 70s. So in the 60s, when he was doing those readings, he was an oldish guy. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was out in Big Sur. I think he spent time somewhere out, and he was out in California.
Yeah, he was in the vanguard of the intellectual side of the hippie movement, and kind of a guiding light for how you withdraw from consumer society. I guess that's what was happening in the 1960s. You know, all those soap detergent commercials and television and everything.
He's got a great laugh.
What was the one?
He's got a smoker's cough, and he's got the greatest laugh. My son Jack loves. I send him like podcasts just so he can listen to him laugh. And Jack just loves him. And one of his other books was Wisdom of Insecurity. He's got a lot of books, but I really like that one. And I know my daughter has that. And I know he's pretty popular, AlanWatts, despite being.
Yeah, it's great.
It's
great to see. It's great to see the comeback. It's so sweet that you sent it to your kids. I've got 3 kids, and I sent them.
You probably hate it.
I sent them the quote. Comparison is the thief of joy, which I didn't know where it came from, and then I found out it was Theodore Roosevelt, one of my heroes. Anyway, so we'll wrap it up for breakfast. I'm Pierre from Yoga Heals, and love to sign off. Peace through grace. Peace through grace.
And I'm Maureen from Landscapes for Learning. Learn to live and live to learn.
Cool.